Good evening. Welcome to Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, tonight I thought I'd make a comment on danger, because on many of the building sites that we are involved in, we'll notice what the local culture is, and when a home is being built, I observe, I judge neither right nor wrong, that children are quite welcome on those building sites. And it wouldn't be my choice, but then I'm a Westerner, a foreigner. So let me say right now that what I'm about to do is do a report just based on observations, and not any complaint about the Philippines or not being accustomed to being here. I'm well accustomed to being here, and I love where I am. And what I try to do is to go out and to view the culture as it stands right now, without my wonderful, all-knowing, educated Western viewpoint as being totally right. Because, I have a feeling that maybe it's not. So, when I read out this list of things, it is based just purely on observation, and I am neither condoning it, encouraging it, welcoming it, or judging it bad. I'm just telling you the kind of thing that if you were in the Philippines, you would be seeing these things and possibly be quite amazed like I am, okay? So the first thing, of course, is electrics. Well, electrics is complete chaos, and what goes for safety here in the Philippines is not your OSHA recommended level of or standard, and they don't have the British standard, and they don't have an American standard. They don't have a lot of things, and they do what they've been doing with a limited budget, and you'll see some very surprising things. Can't illustrate this much, I'm afraid, but believe me, it can be quite a shock. Now, motorcycles are the most amazing thing here, and people learn to ride a motorcycle from the age of, like, some 9 months or even younger. They learn about riding on a motorcycle, because a motorcycle is usually the family transport. Now, as they grow a little older and they're enough to be able to sit cradled in front of the father, in fact, I've seen a baby in arms carried in the left hand of a motorcyclist as he tootles off down the road. Not judging it, and not doing anything more than saying I've seen it. So, 7 to a motorcycle, nothing at all, quite easy to do. Well, if you've been on a motorcycle, sitting on the gas tank of your dad's motorcycle since you were 1 year old, you can take your part in a 7 passenger trip quite easily and not affect the balance of the bike. Now, personally, I've had a death-defying ride with 3 people on a bike, and wondering how I would ever survive, and carrying a box and a suitcase, and up a path that I used to consider was a huge challenge to me as a motorcyclist. Nothing at all to one of the motorcycle taxi drivers that you get. When you roll into the port of Atafi, or any port, in fact, in the Philippines, well, in the islands, there is a rank of motorcyclists, and they are there. They don't wear helmets, they don't offer a helmet, nothing. Maybe when you go to Cebu, there'll be some motorcyclists there, and they offer a helmet, and then they'll take you wherever you want to go. Incredibly cheap how they can do that, earn a pittance, but they'll do that. Now, they'll take 3 or 4 people, and probably carrying a suitcase as well on their tank, and they'll do impossible things. So, as I say, a baby of maybe 1 year old, I've written some of the things down because there's so many, right? So what I've seen very commonly is I've seen the driver of the bike with a child sitting in front of him on the gas tank, and then maybe up to 2 children squashed between him and his wife, who is on the back seat. Where exactly the back seat ends is another thing, because it keeps going on and on and on. So anyway, today, I saw a man sitting on the roof of a truck like mine, a multi-cab, sitting on the roof, facing forward into the wind, where one slight, even approaching an emergency stop would see him fly like a bullet. It would be like he'd be like Superman. He wouldn't need an S on his chest either. So anyway, that was the one I saw today. I see women commonly riding side saddle. That's a common thing. Now, whenever I'm riding a bike, if I've got somebody riding side saddle, I find that hard to balance. Well, anyway, so it's just common as anything to see 60-pound bags of rice across the seat, across the gas tank, across the back seat, not tied on. When I do it, I have to tie it on as if I'm crossing the Atlantic or something, and they don't even need to do that, and it balances perfectly, and they are amazing. And I quite often see the lady on the back there, obviously the wife or the girlfriend, and the bag of rice or chicken feed or pig feed is between her and the driver. It's amazing. So let me see, what else have I seen? 3-ton trucks I've seen, loaded out with plastic chairs and full of people, almost like they're watching a TV program. They're loaded up there, and that will be a common large group way of transporting someone, especially say at a funeral, where a lot of invited mourners, who may or may not be mourners, may be coming for the food, or to just put on a show, and they will be loaded into the back of a truck, and they'll be sitting on the edges, on the back, on the tailgate, and they'll just ride along there, and nobody thinks anything of it. So, what's the other one? Pigs in sacks, slung one on each side of a motorcycle, and they'll be tied on into a sack, and the corner of the sack will have a hole in it, and the pig's snout will be sticking out, and it will be going, like that, while they're riding along, and that seems to work very, very well. Now, the really amazing one I find is the 8x4 sheets of plywood, which are like a wing, and they're placed across the back of the bike, sitting on the lap of a passenger who somehow holds them on, and then they fly into the wind, and I'm not quite sure how they ever make it home, because I would have thought that they'd almost take off, but that's a fairly common thing. Now, 20-foot lengths of rebar. Now, the really safe, cautious way, of course, is that they bend them in half, so they're only 10. So they're only 10 feet. They bend them in half, and then they tie them on the back of the bike, and drag it along 10 feet, trailing at the back. I've done that with myself up to the house, up along the city road, the normal road, and nobody thinks anything. I've actually seen a man who held one of those rebars in one hand, and it trailed 20 feet behind him. And these are automatic bikes, so there's no left-hand clutch work needed, so that hand can be holding anything. So that's the 20-foot lens. Now the tricycle taxis are another thing. There she is. The tricycle taxis will take on almost any load, and I've seen the most incredible loads of furniture stacked high. You'll very often see 20 and 30-foot pieces of bamboo, bunches of bamboo, which will be on the roof of the taxi, of the tricycle taxi, and sometimes just barely tied on, but their sense of balance seems to be so amazing that they still get there. Now, I think I said children are tolerated on all building sites which are home built. So if a man is building a house, children will be around playing, even helping. They'll be trying to mix cement while he's mixing up bits of concrete, and it just happens like that. What have I got here? People sit on... now this is an amazing one, because when you are riding at night, I think I've said this before as well, about 40 to 50, maybe 60% of motorcycles will have no lights on their back. So they have no red lights on the back, no reflectors. Now the reason for this, I think, and why they think it's okay to get away with this, is because even though, say, I would be riding from Taliban down toward Atafi, which is 18 or 20, for my turn off, 18 or 20 kilometers, they're just going, say, 2 kilometers, and they're just going to pop from one house to another, and they'll go on the main road, and so they don't think it matters. It's one of those things that people always used to say about safety belts. Well, I was only going down the road. Of course, you can get killed going down the road, stepping out onto the sidewalk, can't you? So safety belts are completely unknown. The same as 3 on a bike is. 3 on a bike is just so commonplace. I mean, everybody goes 3 on a bike. You know, what's the matter with you? And so it's an aspect of danger that is seems to be no awareness of the danger. And the other thing that is very strange to a Westerner who always has lights, let's face it, drive in LA and have one of your backlights out of order and you're done. You've got a moving violation, and it will affect your insurance and everything. Serious stuff. So what you'll find that will really surprise you, and you cannot, it doesn't matter how long you're here, it doesn't matter whether you love the Filipinos or hate them, it really doesn't matter. It just is almost impossible to understand why someone would sit in the dark with their butt on the asphalt or the concrete, and they do, even though it's a narrow road and only two-way, one going north and one going south, if you like, and they don't move. You can go as close as you like, and often you may do, because you might be trying to focus on that motorcyclist that's in front of you that doesn't have any back lights. Or you might be even busier looking at the motorcyclist that you've just suddenly discovered in your field of vision that has no lights on at all. So there are many things that are completely different here, and when we don't even notice them anymore, and we put up a video, and then people will be, oh gosh, what were you thinking of? You know, I mean, look at... And we're just used to that being the way. And that is the way that things can be in a different culture. So I mean, for instance, would you expect to go into a store and they haven't got change of a $5 note, that they have to leave you there and go and get change, and a $10 note? I mean, forget it. $50? Are you insane? You're giving me $50 to pay for something? How can I get... And they'll go off and try and find somebody that will give them change. You couldn't have that, because in the West they have petty cash, and everybody starts off the day with enough petty cash to do the predicted occasional large bill, which they would be forgiven for having to get change, and then the smaller ones, and they have petty cash, and that's that. At the end of the day they take out the petty cash from the takings. So things are hugely different. When I showed the video of buying a truck, going out to buy a truck, now that got many comments and many suggestions, which in the West would make total sense. One comment was, well, you need to go to another, that's not a very good deal, you need to go to another dealer. In America, for instance, there would always be one road. In Fort Myers there was one road, and all it had along the road was car dealers. You could walk out of one into another, into another, into another, into another, on, and shop for your deal. And it's so different here that you cannot understand it. For instance, there in Taliban there is one car dealer. I mean, there's probably 100 motorcycle dealers, but there's only really one dealership, and that's for a particular truck that you can buy, and that's the Superior Car Company, and they do surplus, and surplus is what, as one subscriber said, they come from Japan, where they have very strict laws on pollution, and after they've done about 60 kilometers they're not allowed to put another engine. It's got to be a new engine, and so these vehicles end up just traded out, and they get sent either parts or whatever, however they do it, they get sent to be sold as what's called surplus in the Philippines. And they come and they look like new cars, but they'll have various things have been done to them. For instance, if they come from a place where it's right-hand drive, like Hong Kong, they will have had all of the driving mechanism in the driver's cab has been changed over from right to left. And in doing so, they may have just ripped out stuff like the heating system, which may just have gotten in the way of a nice tidy job, so they don't put anything back. I assumed that the heating system was all intact in mine when I got my truck, and got us a big surprise when not even the controls are there. So things are very different, and some of the advice comes as even though it's very intelligent and experienced, it comes as inapplicable to living in the province. So how would you get a different dealer? You go to a different town. We went to Obai to get our truck because somebody had recommended a place. We liked the look of the Rusco, and that's where we went. So we went there. Now, it's everything is different. Even all the way that business is done in the province is so different as to be astonishing to most Westerners. Now, you may have seen a video where we finally rescued my vintage VW Beetle, which has been sitting outside my brother-in-law's place, and when he built his house, then the old house is now sitting empty, and outside it was my VW, which it's no longer the best place for it. So we transferred it to Nestor, who is my crippled mechanic who does amazing work, and it's not got a great deal wrong with it except that it's stuck in neutral. So the transmission has locked in neutral and needs to be freed up. Apart from that, we drove the car in there and it has very little wrong with it other than the windshield wipers need to be fixed and it needs to be cleaned. And now, because kids jumped up and down on it, it's going to have some paint work done. But this is a car that I spent a great deal of money on, almost as a hobby, when I first arrived in the Philippines. And I'd always liked the idea of a VW, and so I bought one and moved into an apartment which was in the same street as the mechanic that fixed it up, and we restored it. So I have that now, and that's being repaired. Now look at this. I was told, how long will it take, I asked. Perfectly reasonable thing to ask. 2 weeks, I was told. Two weeks. Now I know better than to argue, so I said, okay, 2 weeks, that's fine. It's not fine, but but I know that arguing it is not going to make a difference. So a week later, I stopped by and say, how's it going? And he said, we need 2 new inner tubes. Well, nobody told me anything about this, about needing those 2 new inner tubes, and they're waiting for me to come in and see them, and then they would tell me, oh, we need 2 new inner tubes. So then I take the size of the truck, of the tyre on the Volkswagen, and I go down to the nearest dealership, or not a dealership, a tiny little hut that's there, and get 2 new inner tubes. So I bring those back, and he says, oh fine, I need 200 pesos. And I said to him, what is that for? And he says, well, I need 200 pesos. Yeah, yes, what is that for? He said, yeah, it's 200 pesos. So, guess what? I give him 200 pesos. And then it turns out that he'll get his friend who is doing tyres or replacements, and he'll just get his friend to come along, and the friend will take the wheels off and replace the inner tubes. So that's that. Now we're on to the repair. When do you think? Well, now we can put it up onto the ramp and see what's happening. I get that via sign language, mime. Marcel will be proud of it. And a week later I stop by again, and the car has been moved at least, but he says tomorrow we'll fix the transmission. Right, so the 2 weeks has gone by. At least it was sitting outside the mechanic's place, but nothing's been done other than change the wheels. Things are quite different, and yes, I'm well used to the fact that I live here in the Philippines, and I'm very happy. But these are the things that when we do our videos, we inadvertently sometimes show these things which at one time would have amazed and astonished me, and now we don't think anything of them. And of course, Beth is Filipina, so she doesn't think anything of them. So this is a foreigner in the Philippines. Think again about danger.